You ever have one of those neighbors who acts like your fence is just a suggestion? Like every square foot you paid for somehow belongs to them, if they can just reach it with their shadow? Yeah, I had one of those, and let me tell you what. Started out as a dumb squabble over a guest house lock turned into the wildest showdown of my entire retirement. The kind of story you'd only believe if you'd lived through it. I'm Martin Graves. Lived in Savannah, Georgia my whole life, well, at least ever since I met my late wife. And we built this house with our own hands back when the paint still smelled new and the yard was just a patch of Georgia clay. After she passed, I kept living here mostly for the memories, partly for the peace, just me, a couple old photos, and this creaky guest house out back that barely saw any use except when my nephew Tyler brought his kids over or I needed somewhere to stash Christmas lights. Now, I'd been thinking about making better use of that guest house, maybe an office, maybe a little side income from short-term rentals if I ever got around to cleaning out the spiders and old tools. First order of business was security. So I got myself a Bluetooth smart lock, one of those gadgets you run from your phone, simple keypad, nothing fancy, and 2 cameras that probably cost less than my last trip to Waffle House. But hey, peace of mind. I remember that Saturday morning screwing it onto the door, feeling pretty proud for a guy who still gets nervous with anything more complicated than a toaster. Stood back, admired my handiwork. And just as I was putting away my drill, I heard the back gate creak open. And that's when my neighbor Nancy Roach barreled in like she was making a citizen's arrest. Nancy. Man, where do I even start? Imagine the permanent frown lines of a mall cop who's never caught a shoplifter, plus the attitude of someone who thinks retirement community means kingdom. She's maybe in her 60s. Sharp features, always wore this expression like she smelled something foul, and the only time we ever really spoke was when she wanted to complain about my oak leaves falling near her patio. Anyway, she marches right across my grass. No hello, no warning points at the lock, and barks, "What is that? Like I just installed a missile silo or something." So I say nice as I can, "Morning, Miss Roach. Just a smart lock for the guest house." She squints at me like she's calculating how much trouble she can stir up before breakfast. "You can't do that," she snaps. "I need access." I actually laughed, thought she was kidding. "Access to my guest house." She goes, "Yes. There's a neighborhood understanding. Emergency storage tools, people use that space. Now, I've lived here over 30 years. I know every handshake deal, every unwritten rule, and I can promise you nobody ever said, 'Hey, Martin, let your neighbor stash her junk in your guest house.' I kept my voice level, told her it was private property, there's no understanding, and if she needed anything, she could ask me, but this, not happening. She gets all huffy, mutters something about people like you coming in and changing everything, and let me tell you, that hit different. People like you. That's not just about the lock, right? It never is." She storms off, and I tell myself, let it go. She's just got a bee in her bonnet. But that night around 9 p.m., I'm settled in my chair, halfway through a rerun, and the doorbell goes off like someone's trying to break it. I peek out and see 2 cops, lights flashing in the drive, Nancy standing behind them with her arms folded like a villain in a cheap TV movie. "Sir, we've had a complaint. One officer says Miss Roach claims you're locking her out of her property and refusing her access to her belongings." My jaw about hits the floor. I explain calmly, "I think this is my guest house. She's got nothing in there. Never had a key, just installed the lock and cameras. They do their thing, jot notes, say it's a civil matter, and leave." But there's this look like maybe I'm hiding something. I'm sitting there fuming, thinking, why is she so confident? That's when I pull up my old security camera footage. Nothing fancy, grainy as all get out, but it works. I start scrubbing through the past few weeks, and I'll be damned if I don't see Nancy sneaking through my gate late at night more than once using a key. My spare key, the one I'd forgotten I left under a planter probably a decade ago. She unlocks the guest house, stays for hours, sometimes alone, sometimes with a friend, bags in tow. One night she's got wine. I head out there with my phone flashlight, open up the place, and find behind the old wardrobe a whole set-up deflated mattress, snacks, wine, her toothbrush, towels. She'd been camping out in my guest house like it was a vacation home. And here's where it gets nuts. I find out she's not just squatting, she's renting the place out on this site called City Nests. I see a listing, Charming Savannah Hideaway, hosted by Nancy. My guest house, my porch, my flowers, blurry photos, so you can't quite see the street number, but there's no mistaking it. $70 a night. reviews going back months. She'd made thousands. Yeah, I about lost it, but instead of blowing my top, I started collecting proof, screenshots, footage, everything. Called my nephew Tyler, who's a hotshot lawyer, and we put together a case file that'd make a detective jealous. Here's the kicker, though. Before I could even breathe, Nancy files a formal claim against me, said she was my tenant month to month and I was illegally evicting her. Yeah, that happened. I nearly choked. But this time when I called the cops, I wasn't just talking. I had everything video of her sneaking in the rental listing. Even the guest reviews. The cops' faces said it all. Now, it wasn't just a neighbor dispute. It was fraud, trespassing, theft. A detective followed up, and when they found the rental payments, the account in her name, the whole thing unraveled fast. 3 days later, half the block is out on their porches watching the police haul Nancy off her front lawn. She's screaming about injustice, waving her arms, accusing me of harassment. He's trying to throw an old woman out, but her house was literally 25 feet away, paid off, lights on. This wasn't about needing shelter. It was about power control. And maybe if I'm honest about her hating the fact I stood my ground, didn't let her push me around. The trial was a blur footage, lock logs, bank statements, guest reviews. She was found guilty of trespassing, fraud, theft of services. 18 months in county plus restitution. Judge called it a calculated abuse of trust for personal gain. Me, I didn't celebrate, didn't even feel angry anymore. But that weekend I fired up the grill and invited over the neighbors who believed me, strung a now available roach-free guest house banner between 2 trees, got a laugh out of it, felt lighter. But I gotta tell you, it changes you. I always figured if you keep your head down, respect folks, they'll do the same. But peace turns into silence, and silence turns into permission until someone takes everything you built and calls it theirs. I'm done with that. So here's my question. What would you have done? Was I too patient? Too polite? Or did I play it just right? Because every neighborhood's got a Nancy. And trust me, if you haven't met yours yet, you will. Drop your thoughts below. Let's hear how you draw the line between neighborly and naive, what's justice, what's overkill, and who gets to decide when enough is enough.